All right, so my guest, just to reiterate, is Trevor Loudon. His book just came out today, the first copy of the book right here, and the first interview since the book came out. The book is called White House Reds, Communist, Socialist, and Security Risk Running for U.S. President 2020. Now, this show will be relevant years from now, regardless of what happens in November 2020, because of the groups we're talking about, the history we're talking about, the ideologies we're talking about. So, folks, this is relevant and will be for years to come. We're going to tell you now about a group he just mentioned, which I'd never heard of until I sat down with the PDF, because you gave me the real copy today, but I sat down with the PDF for many hours yesterday, marked it up. I had never heard of this group till yesterday, Council for a Livable World. You just mentioned them. And you said that they have helped to elect how many?
Over 200 U.S. senators.
Just U.S. senators alone?
Yeah, and about 300 congressmen.
All right, well, what is the Council for a Livable World? When did it start and who started it?
Well, it was started in 1962, so they've been at this for a long time. It was started by a man called Leo Szilard. Now, he was Hungarian. He was a communist supporter in Hungary, left that country when the revolution was overthrown, came to the United States, was a nuclear physicist, and was a leading scientist on the Manhattan Project, the project that gave us the American atomic bomb. He was regarded as a massive security risk. The head of the project, Security Groves, wanted to kick him out. There were many Soviet spies working, and that's how the Soviets got the bomb, by infiltrating that project. After the war, he was named as a Soviet agent by Pavel Sudoplatov, a former GRU officer who defected and wrote a book. And what he said was that Szilard and his friends, who had been spies for the Soviets, betrayed America to the Soviet Union, they were disconnected from the KGB and told to set up peace groups that would work to disarm the United States, that would work to disarm your nuclear armaments, your conventional systems, to negotiate disadvantageous treaties with the Soviet Union, etc. So in 1962, Szilard sets up Council for a Livable World.
How do you say his name?
Szilard, S-Z-I-L-I-R-D. So Szilard, I pronounce it Szilard, maybe that's slightly incorrect, but Leo Szilard. So he set this group up, and the rationale was very simple. They gathered a whole bunch of money, and they decided in a small state, every state has 2 senators. If we focus on election races in small states, we can buy senators for a very low cost. You know, it doesn't cost much to elect a senator in Delaware or Montana.
Oh, wait a minute. Delaware,
yeah. Think
Joe
about
Biden?
It. Joe Biden.
Is that how Joe Biden got his
Joe
start?
Biden was one of the very first successes. Joe Biden in 1972 was a 29-year-old city councillor, and he decided to run for US Senate against an incumbent Republican, 4-term Republican with an 80% approval rating. How insane was that, right? But he was supported by the Council for a Livable World. They got $280,000 for him, which was a lot of money in 1972, I'll tell you, for a small state like Delaware. And that was organised by a man called Albert Gore Sr.
Al Gore's father.
You might have heard of him, senator from Tennessee.
From Tennessee, yeah.
Al, his son invented global warming and the internet.
And
right?
the internet, right.
They're right. But Al Gore Sr. was the head at the time of the Council for a Livable World. And he picked up Biden and guided him through the process. Now, Al Gore Sr. was the protege of a man called Armand Hammer.
He's a communist.
Who was the leading Soviet agent of the early 20th century.
From which we get Armand Hammer, the baking soda, right?
Yeah. And Occidental Petroleum was his company. Armand Hammer was the man who kept the Bolshevik Revolution afloat. His father was a US communist. He made billions of dollars trading with the Soviet Union. He was a Soviet agent of influence, yet he was Al Gore Sr.'s patron. Also Al Gore's patron as well. But so Joe Biden owed his job to 2 Soviet agents, Leo Szilard and Al Gore Sr. Biden has done more to gut the US military in his term of office than any other senator. He negotiated treaties with the Soviet Union, which gave them huge advantages. He fought Reagan all the time over his anti-communist policies in Latin America. And in 2012, I quote Biden. He talks about how, and Council for a Livable World says two of our greatest successes. He said, this is what they say. They said, we back these senators and they don't forget us when we come calling for favors. And our two greatest successes were Joe Biden and Barack Obama. And he boasts in 2012 how the Council for a Livable World has been with him his entire career, and they helped him and Obama negotiate the New START treaty with Russia. This has continued on after the fall of the wall, which gave huge advantages to Russia, to Moscow, and that basically President Trump has wiped because the Russians were cheating so much on it. So this is Joe Biden. He has done more damage to the U.S. military than any other politician in U.S. history. And he got his start through the Council for a Livable World. Not just his start, they were with him his entire career.
Listen to what he said from your book, page 12. I'm quoting from White Reds by Trevor Loudon, page 12. He says, in October 2012, Biden made a 2-minute video congratulating the Council for a Livable World on its 50th anniversary. Biden was very open about CLW's influence on both him and U.S. policy making. This is Joe Biden, presidential candidate. He said this, former U.S. senator, said this, former vice president, said this in 2012. Quote, this would have been when he was vice president.
Yep.
He said, quote, my ties to the council run long and deep, stretching way back to my first campaign for United States Senate. I'll never forget the faith you showed and the help you gave to a young man making a long shot for the United States Senate in 1972. Because of you, we won. That help was continued throughout my entire career, especially when I was chairman of the United States Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and it continues to this very day. My appreciation for your work has only grown over that period as we continue to work together on a wide range of projects, all aimed at reducing the danger of nuclear weapons. The insight, counsel, and support you provided me and my colleagues on Capitol Hill and the White House has contributed to landmark achievements from ratifying the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty and START to establishing a nuclear testing moratorium here at home, to the Chemical Weapons Convention, and to this very day, your support and guidance during our recent effort to ratify New START, end quote.
Yep, so he's admitting that an organization set up by a Soviet spy to gut the US military basically has got him elected and has nurtured his political career and given him guidance all the way through.
And
that's
this guy that started the council, Leo Szilard,
has also been named as a bona fide Soviet agent.
He became a prominent anti-nuclear campaigner. This led, you write, among other things, to a 2-hour meeting with then Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev in 1960, where he gained Khrushchev's assent to a Moscow-Washington hotline. What do you mean by hotline?
Well, it was a direct hotline between the leaders of the two countries. So basically, the president of the US could talk to the president of whatever. So this basically gave the Soviets direct influence into the White House, a direct line into the White House.
Through Leo?
Through Leo Szilard arranged that.
He arranged that hotline.
Yeah, he
set that up.
He got the Soviet assent for it. Yeah.
So you go on to state, according to the Pro-Disarmament Pugwash Institute, quote, in 1962, Szilard founded the Council for a Livable World to raise money for U.S. senators who favored arms control treaties. By Szilard's calculus, all states had 2 senators, so votes come cheapest by supporting campaigns in the least populous states. The council's first successful candidate was Senator George McGovern from South Dakota. Today, the council thrives by supporting candidates from all states and the House of Representatives as well. It is America's first political action committee for arms control and disarmament, end quote. And of course, the Soviets would love to have their agents here working with politicians to get us to disarm, which is why today, Dr. Peter Pry says in our documentary Siege, Dr. Peter Pry, Executive Director of the Congressional EMP Task Force, Dr. Peter Pry, who's been on Mark Levin for an hour on TV, Dr. Peter Pry, whose TV show we produce, Dr. Peter Pry, whose radio show we produce, Dr. Peter Pry, who's good friends with many people, is considered one of the excellent and foremost expert on EMP and many other issues, has sat at this desk and stated, as he did in Siege, we were following treaties, Russia was breaking them. The way that happens is by communist agents working through these political action committees, getting us to agree to these treaties. We then honor them, they break them, and now they've got it all over us militarily. Which would come as a huge surprise to most Americans, because I always hear Americans say, oh, America's got the biggest and baddest military in the world. No one can bother us. And I'm like, really? And how many nuclear tipped missiles do we have? But this is how Russia gets it over on us. And if Ronald Reagan's idea was peace through strength, Russia's idea is dominance by weakness.
Yeah, they
want to weaken us.
Yeah, and they have done that. And as we said before, they knew they couldn't challenge you in a trade war. They knew they couldn't challenge you militarily, but they could buy up your politicians to enact policies that worked in their favor. And that's exactly what they did with Joe Biden and Barack Obama. And I'll tell you two more people who are very, very close to the Council for a Livable World, who both attended their 50th anniversary celebrations, and that is Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren.
Oh, shocker.
Who both support the Green New Deal, which would absolutely gut the US military beyond even what Obama could have dreamed of. The Green New Deal is all about destroying the US military. And if you destroy the US military, who runs the world? It's Russia and
communism, China. The Green New Deal is environmentalism let me put it this way. The Green New Deal is communism masquerading as environmentalism.
Yeah, it is. It's a watermelon strategy. It's red in the middle and green on the outside.
You state in your book, according to the Council for Livable World website, and cited in an article in 2008, they said this about themselves, quote, almost 50 years ago, Council for a Livable World pioneered a system for helping progressive congressional, by progressive they mean socialists, yeah. Congressional candidates get elected office. Over the last 44 years, we have helped elect 113 U.S. arms control candidates to the Senate and 151 candidates to the House of Representatives. And that was 2008, so the number's higher now.
They've elected a lot more. It's over 200 senators now.
This is what the Tennessean reported, quote, when Joe Biden started running for a Senate seat in 1972, few people thought the young man from Delaware had a chance, but a well-placed Tennessee couple tagged him early as an up-and-comer. I was 29 years old, running for the United States Senate against a guy with an 81% favorable rating, a year where Richard Nixon won my state by over 65% of the vote. And I was an Irish Catholic in a state that had never elected one, Biden told Tennessee Democrats in a 2010 speech. Biden pulled off a stunning 3,162 vote upset, with a mix of youthful vigor, skillful campaigning, energized volunteers, and smart advertising, fueled by tens of thousands of dollars that a prominent Tennessee couple raised for his campaign. His candidacy caught the eye of former Tennessee Senator Albert Gore Sr., who was working with a Washington, D.C.-based arms control group called the Council for a Livable World.
It's all there. You can find it. But the media... hardly any conservatives in this country have even heard of the Council for a Livable World.
I'd never heard of it till yesterday.
It is the most influential organization in Washington, in my opinion, as far as foreign policy and arms control goes. They have destroyed so many US military systems, cancelled so many weapon systems, downgraded military budgets, negotiated bad treaties with your enemies. They've done more damage to the US military than the Nazis ever did or the Japanese ever did in World War II, yet they are supporting your presidential candidates with no scrutiny to this day, right now.
And if we had an FBI...
They're backing something like 10 senators in this upcoming election.
And if we had an FBI that was doing its job, none of this would have happened.
Exactly.
If we had a Congress that was doing its job, none of this would happen. And a lot of people that are now in powerful positions and on the verge of going to the White House would be in federal prison.
Exactly.
Correct?
No question.
And yet they went after and did a morning raid on a SWAT team on Roger Stone for process crimes and are looking to throw him to jail for, the rest of his life, literally. I mean, can you believe what goes on in this country? I mean, it is a corrupt system.
It is.
What are they finally going to do to get rid of you and me? I mean, our good friend Phil Haney, we still don't know what happened to him yet. Hopefully we'll find out. Yeah. But I mean, that could have been deep state. That could have been a random thing. We don't know what it was yet. But there are a lot of people over the years that have died very suspiciously because they talked too much and revealed too much. Yeah. And if they can't get you by hook, they'll get you by crook. The question is, if they can use the legal system to destroy people that speak the truth or they don't like politically, they can come after any of us.
They can. And you know what, Brannon? Doing what we're doing is dangerous. And you know the only thing that's more dangerous?
Not doing it.
Not doing it. And I say that to everybody who's watching today. You know, your country hangs in the balance. Your children's future hangs in the balance. Everything you believe in hangs in the balance. And you've been given a country because a few thousand brave patriots risked everything back in the 1700s to fight a war against a tyrant. You were given this huge gift. Well, now is the time everybody has got to take a stand. Everybody's got to stand up, because it ain't just Trump. George Washington didn't win the Revolutionary War all by himself, and President Trump won't win the next election or clean up this country by himself either. He's giving us some guidance and some leadership, but now is the time to stand up.
You quote, again, in his excellent book, White House Reds, Communist, Socialist, and Security Risks Running for U.S. President 2020. And the thing is all the history you're providing, like teaching us about the Council for a Livable World. You state that on June 21st, you're reading from an article, on June 21st, 1971, the Nashville Banner reported that Gore, that'd be Al Gore Sr., 6 months removed from the Senate, would become the Washington chairman of the Council for a Livable World, with advocates for decreasing the threat of nuclear weapons. Gore expects to spend much time in the next 18 months traveling across the country in behalf of 1972 Senate candidates for which the council is raising campaign money, the Banner reported in a short story. Nashville civil rights attorney George Barrett, who practiced law with both Albert and Pauline Gore in the early 1970s, said the couple saw in Biden a progressive, bright, hardworking young man, end quote. You state the Council for Livable World's highly effective tactics is to explicitly seek long-shot candidates to fund so it can lean on them later to help with its goal of disarming the United States. John Isaacs, a senior fellow at the Council for Livable World, spelled this strategy out in his 2013 eulogy to his predecessor, Massachusetts-based socialist Jerome Grossman. Quote, now this is them saying, this is their own words from your book. You quote their own words. Quote, now, as an aside, we have a dictum of Council for a Livable World. If we support a candidate in his or her first major political contest, he or she will always remember who was with them at the beginning. That has been true with such political figures, he says modestly, as President Barack Obama and Vice President Joseph Biden. They remember who was with them when they launched their political careers. And that's why it was so nice to see a tweet from Vice President Biden after Jerry's death. He was a good friend who worked tirelessly to advance U.S. security through nuclear arms control, end quote, is what Biden tweeted.
Yes, it's all there in their own words. And what makes it serious, what brings it together, you can prove the deep connection between the Council for a Livable World and Biden. They've guided him his entire way. And when you find out that Al Gore Sr. was a protege of a Soviet agent, and the Council for a Livable World was set up by another Soviet agent with the explicit purpose of disarming America so the Soviets would win the next war, it all falls into place.
Well, and in our next broadcast, we're going to talk about Armand Hammer, who is all tied into this.
Yeah, Armand Hammer was the man behind this, the leading Soviet agent of the early 20th century. The guy who kept the Bolshevik Revolution from basically collapsing. You imagine, had he not done that and the Bolshevik Revolution collapsed, how much happier the 20th century would have been.
Here's what Biden says. You write, Biden was certainly obligated. Quote, here's the deal, writes Biden. I was desperately trying to raise money. I got a call from a woman named Pauline Gore. Would that be Al Gore Sr.'s wife?
Yes.
Al Gore Jr.'s mother?
Yes.
Would I come down to Washington and meet with her and Senator Gore and some concerned scientists who wanted to talk about the spread of nuclear weapons? It was an outfit called the Council for a Livable World, end quote. Biden said in a 2010 speech in Nashville. So, according to Tennessean, quote, so I showed up in Senator Gore's apartment in the Methodist House, which was a catty corner from the Supreme Court. I sat there and it basically was an interview. I didn't realize it. Senator Gore, who had left the Senate 2 years earlier, said, "I'm going to help you," end quote. So Biden, said Joe Biden, quote, "So if you want to blame anybody for my being a United States senator elected 7 times and vice president, it's all the fault of former Senator Al Gore." That'd be Al Gore Sr., Al Gore, the former vice president's father.
Yeah.
It's worth remembering that Al Gore Sr. was himself the fault of a very rich man named Armand Hammer, the longtime head of Occidental Petroleum. According to espionage expert Edward J. Epstein, quote, "In 1950, Hammer made Gore a partner in a cattle breeding business from which the senator made a substantial profit." Sounds like something Hillary Clinton did at one time, right? Thereafter, Gore was Hammer's designated door opener in the official Washington. When Mr. Gore retired, Hammer made him president of Occidental's coal division, where he earned more than $500,000 a year. Well, he wasn't very green, was he?
Well, no, he wasn't. And that's money in 1950s terms. It's a lot of money.
$500,000 in 1950s, big money. Soon, son Al next put the family's Senate seat at Hammer's service. At the 1981 inauguration of Ronald Reagan, Junior Gore, Jr. managed for Hamner to be seated in a section reserved for senators. Hamner lurked in the doorway, hoping to glad hand the president, but Mr. Reagan brushed by him without a glance, and with reason. Years earlier, Alexander de Marchences, the head of French intelligence, had warned Reagan that Hamner was a Soviet agent of influence, end quote. Let me make sure what people are saying here. You're saying that Armor Hammer, Al Gore Jr., had Hammer at the 1981 inauguration of Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
And that Hammer, positioned himself to shake the hand of the new president. And Ronald Reagan brushed by him without even paying attention because he had been warned by a French agent earlier on that Hammer was a Soviet agent.
That's exactly right. See, Hammer actually joined the Republican Party later. He was trying to get influence through the GOP, but he was a Soviet agent. And then later on, it says that the FBI was going to move on Armand Hammer, but Al Gore Sr. persuaded J. Edgar Hoover not to move on him, not to prosecute him.
And you state on page 11, Democrat presidential candidate Joe Biden owes his political career to the Council for a Livable World, an organization created by alleged Soviet agent Leo Salad, supported by money from Al Gore Sr., who in turn was funded by the Soviet Union's best friend in the United States, Armand Hammer.
Yeah, and Joe Biden has been one of the leading proponents of U.S. disarmaments, gutting your weapon systems, cancelling weapon systems, defunding your military, working with the Soviet Union, working for détente, and basically betraying the country to the Soviet Union. And he's the moderate in the race.
And folks, have you ever heard of the Council for a Livable World? I hadn't until I read his book last night. It's called White House Reds. It just came out today. We have the first interview since it came out. Got my copy signed. You can get your copy signed by ordering it at trevorloudon.com, trevorloudon.com, or off Amazon. But if you want him to sign it, you can get it from his website. Folks, this is the second of several programs. Again, if you appreciate what we're doing, the way these programs are made possible is through your tax-deductible support at WVW-Foundation.com. So please go to WVW-Foundation.com, make a tax-deductible contribution today. You can also find our mailing address on the screen and send a check if you prefer. We spend $3,000 a month in streaming and storage to give you programs like this. We are listener-supported. The second way you can support us is by joining our VIP club, where we archive all our radio shows, TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, transcripts, and more. Over 1,000 TV shows like this on demand. If you go to WVW-TV.com/subscription and join our VIP subscription club, where all these shows eventually roll into, if you go there and join at the 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year rate, I'm going to send you my documentary, Sabotage, 6 hours. I'm going to send that to you for free, along with my book, Marxianity. I'll send you the book and the documentary free as my way of saying thank you for supporting us by getting a 1 year, 2 year, or 3 year membership at WVW-TV.com/subscription, where we have over 1,000 TV shows like this archived, along with thousands of TV shows, ebooks, audiobooks, transcripts, and more. WVW-TV.com/subscription. It's vital we hear from you so we can keep putting out programming like this. In addition, we've had to increase our security over the last few months due to many things that have been going on. And so to afford those security increases at our studios, again, we need your support. Please Go there right now and join WVW-TV.com/subscription if you want to join, or make a tax-deductible contribution by online or mail, WVWFoundation.com. Next broadcast, Program 3, with our guest, Trevor Loudon, author of White House Reds. Till next time, I'm Brannon Howse. Thanks for watching. Take care.